5, 4, 3, 2.
Hey, welcome everybody. I better actually get myself a microphone here. That would probably help a little bit. Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Jeff from Junior Hockey Advisor. Sunday night, back in our normal slot, but in a little bit earlier time. And that is mostly because I am a bachelor for a while. My wife is down in Texas with my daughter and visiting. And so I am taking care of the whole house, the dogs, all the things that normally I don't get involved with the dogs. So knowing that they have to be walked before I go to bed, I wasn't going to stay up late and do a broadcast. I thought I'd do it a little earlier so I could take them for their walk afterwards. And no, they're not manly dogs by any stretch of the the imagination. They are little tiny Shibas, and if you know what a Shiba is, you know what they're like. They're a very interesting dog. I'm playing with tea. I'm trying to cut down on my coffee at this time of night too, so I can sleep. So anyway, hey, look, what I did tonight was I just took several subjects that have been coming up a lot on either people messaging me, emails, texts, phone calls, and I tried to summarize probably the three things that I'm getting the most questions about, and thought I'd chat with you about them tonight and leave the door open for any discussion that you may want to come up on anything. First of all, say hi. Let us know where you're at. Let us know what you're, where you're at. And if you got any questions, throw them on the comments. We'd love to see what the comments are. I want to make sure that we're actually broadcasting right now. We've got greens on all the different platforms. That's always good. So like a pilot, I have to check to make sure that I'm following some kind of process and to make sure everything's right. All the buttons have to be in the right place. So, okay. Hey, look, it's good to see you start coming in. We've got a little bit of an audience. I didn't expect much of an audience tonight comparatively to our normal time slot. But anyway, let's get on with this. Probably the three questions, if I were going to break them down, I forgot to do this too. My name is Jeff Colson. I've been doing this for over 30 years. I work in the industry. I am a player development director for a team in the North American Hockey League. But I've been doing this for a very long time as a junior owner, as a junior general manager, as a coach, as a college coach. I've had a lot of experience at this, and probably more so as a parent. I've had two players that have gone on to the NCAA level and had success, national championship level success along the way. So as I do this and I talk to you, I hope that you understand that this is here to help you figure out the process and to help you understand the process and how you get to the next level. And the three questions that I'm going to work with tonight, and this is only a starting ground, please jump in and feel free to add anything or add any questions or add any comments on the screens. The three areas though, how do I hire an advisor? Okay. And I get it. I've answered this question over the last few years a lot, but we're adding hundreds of people each week to our different platforms. And when you have a new audience, you kind of have to make sure that you keep going through things over and over again. Even though this is on video, not everybody wants to go back and look at 30 videos to find the piece of information they have. So we'll cover that again a little bit tonight. We're not going to go into as much detail as I've gone into in other live streams. The other one is, this one's a tough one for me, but I get a lot of it this time of year, especially, that March, April, May. Where's the best place for me to play? And it's a generic question that's usually open-ended. Hi, my son is 17. He's playing AAA. And where's the best place to play? It's very subjective. I can tell you what statistically I know. I can tell you what I like and what I favor. And I can also tell you where, as a professional that is, has a staff of people watching players in the field, where we send people to watch games and where we're, putting our focus and our efforts. So we'll jump into that one too. And, that's kind of leading into the last one too, which is, so hiring an advisor, where should I play? And then the real one is and the tough one is 18 versus junior, and having that discussion a little bit too. So let's start out, and I'm hoping you'll jump in too and help me. Questions, comments, give me some fodder to work with here. I talk about these things so much. A lot of times I miss points that you heard me talk about in the past that were valid or poignant in from your perspective. Make sure if I'm missing something that I said in the past that you stop, you throw a comment on there and correct me. Correct me maybe a little bit harsh. Give me, fill me in on what I missed and help me out. Let's do this as a team for all of you that have been around and have helped me with this over the last few years. So let's talk about advisors first. First of all, I should say, let's talk about what an advisor does. I'm neutral on advisors. Advisors play a role for some. Advisors don't play a role for some. Advisors are very professional in some cases. Advisors are very unprofessional. It's an unregulated industry. Okay, so you really get whatever you put into it. If you don't put your homework into it, you don't put your research into it, and you go into it blind, or you go off on a dream, it's kind of like buying a piece of land in Florida you've never seen. Okay, it could turn out pretty bad for you. This is a situation where you really, really have to dig in deep if you're going to find an advisor that works well. Now, before we go down the road, I try not to, I do my best not to get involved with recommending advisors. But I'll tell you, the advisors I respect out there, the ones that I think are doing a great job, are the ones that will tell you no. They're the ones that actually see you play before they make a recommendation. They're the ones that will actually listen to you first and maybe actually sleep on it before they tell you what they're going to do for you and where they're going to place you and what they're going to do. Nothing drives me more batty than hearing about somebody that hired an advisor that's never met them face to face or had a Zoom call with them, hasn't been to the rink to watch their kid play, hasn't watched their kid on video, and could not tell you what your kid looked like if they bumped into each other at the rink. Now that, to me, is a travesty, because that shouldn't happen in an industry like this. You should really have a good tab on whoever your client is, and that hurts. That hurts a lot. So, what I mean by saying no, I truly believe a good advisor is a narrowly focused advisor. For example, some guys are really good at, putting kids into prep programs and then moving kids from prep on to juniors. Some guys, they really focus just on that prep kid in that prep market. Some are really good in the West Coast of Canada, and they really work on AJ, BCHL kids, and that's where their focus is, moving kids into those junior programs and then on to NCAA from there. Okay, I like advisors that really have a focus that's narrowed and fits a certain part of the or a certain segment of the marketing mix. Okay, I don't like generalists. I don't like somebody that'll have just somebody's just above a AA level and then have somebody that's a D1 level client. I just don't understand that. I think you need to be narrow focused on this, and that's my first recommendation, is to find the advisors that have a really narrow focus and really spend a lot of time honing in on one area of the hockey market to be very good at. No different than what I do. I mean, I could come on here and talk about skills and drills. I could come on here and talk about bench strategy. I could come on here and talk about team building, the psychological effect of hockey on players at different levels. I could talk about all that stuff, but that's not my focus. My focus is, how to move up through the process and how to take advantage of whatever tools are out there to help you move up through the process. So, okay, so that hire the advisor, saying no. If you call up an advisor and the guy says no, in my book, that's an advisor that's not trying to take your money, okay? Maybe that's an advisor, maybe the next day you try to call him again and see if you can change his mind, because if he's saying no for a reason, because he doesn't want to, either he doesn't represent people at your level, in other words, you're too young, too old, or a skill level, maybe you're playing at a too low level, or in some cases, rare cases, an advisor will turn down a guy that's at a level that's above him. That doesn't happen very often, though. Or you're in a situation where your goals, as far as where you want to go, don't match up or align with his goals. In other words, you want to play in the BCHL, and they really focus on the NCDC, or they really focus on the null. So, yes, there are guys that have that kind of business. The good ones have that narrow focus business. It makes their life easier because they really can hone in and be a professional in a certain area. And it also helps you because they really know whatever area that they're working on and become very, very good at that area instead of trying to be a generalist. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that say they're everything to everybody, and they'll hire anybody or they'll take on a client from anybody at any level of play just to build their book of business. And really, that hurts the industry. Remember, it's unregulated. You cannot complain to anybody if the advisor doesn't work out. I guess if there's laws broken, of course you can go that route. But I'm talking about if it's just you're not happy with the level of attention, you're not happy with the level of communication, then that's incumbent on you to be able to resolve it with that advisor. You can't turn to USA Hockey, you can't turn to the NCAA, you can't turn to their boss because most of these guys work for themselves. So what do? You usually have to suck it up and move on if your relationship with your advisor is not working out so well. So with that said, I'm not anti-advisor. I'm very pro a good advisor for someone that needs an advisor. So let's back up a little bit and talk about who needs an advisor. Okay, this is a hard question to answer because right now probably only 30% of the kids, 40% of the kids, the athletes right now that we have on our list are 150, 180, wherever we're at right now, list of athletes that we're vetting for draft purposes, for tender purposes, or to invite to camp. The majority of them, the vast majority of them are not represented by advisors. Some are. Some of them got on our list because an advisor that we trust gave us their name and said, watch this kid, he's a good player. But that's less than 10% of the players. Now, that's where I really, really want you to listen, because this one is important to hear. Maybe the number 10 is probably low. Probably less than 20% of the players that we have on our list of players that we're watching came to us because an advisor gave us their name, okay? That list is actually fairly short of those kind of players. Everybody assumes that if they have an advisor, it's going to open doors for them. Everybody assumes that all these advisors call or email us all the time. There's only a handful of guys that actually do that. I want you to hear that. There's only a handful of guys that work, I should say people, because there are some representatives, male and females out there in the advisor world. There's only a handful that pick up the phone and call junior programs or email junior programs. Right now, I know of probably less than 10 of the hundreds of advisors, less than 10 that are actively pursuing trying to get players into our program. And we're an all team and we're in first place. You'd think that that'd be a place that'd really be pushing hard to get their players. Now, with that said, the advisor that understands what we are looking for and he doesn't have anything that fits what we're looking for, I fully get it. They shouldn't be calling us. But that is probably a limited number of people that are actually not calling us because they've already done their homework on what we need versus the people that just say they call coaches all the time. And maybe they do call an assistant coach at a D3 program or they call an assistant coach at a college program. But if they're not doing the work to get you at the right junior program, you're never going to get to that college program. So, getting back to that question of who needs an advisor, really, you can do this without an advisor if you want to do all the legwork yourself. Is it harder for you to, crack? It's like going in for a job interview. There's always a gatekeeper. And in hockey, there's gatekeepers too. There's a reason why, even if you've got a head coach's phone number, they don't return the call, is because if you've got a head coach's phone number, there's probably 300 other people that are youth hockey players or at other junior programs that have his phone number too, that they've gotten in different ways. And they usually only return calls of people they know. Okay, that's not uncommon. So getting past the gatekeeper without an advisor, it can be done. But that means usually you have to do it with your own emails, your own marketing. Now, I've told you before, meaning I can only give you my perspective on this. I open up every email that a kid sends me. If there's video, I watch the video. Okay. I would imagine the majority of the people in junior hockey and at college hockey levels that are successful do the same thing. I can't tell you that's a fact, but I believe that should be the case. That most people that are doing it right are opening video. So if you get an email and you're sending it to the assistant coach, the head coach, the GM, the player development guy like myself, and the scouts, you should be getting open emails. And if the message is simple and clear and your performance on video looks good, it's most likely going to trigger some further action from the team. Does that further action mean we're going to get back to you? No. Because if I get back to you and say, besides a cursory thank you, we got your email. If I get back to you and say, hey, thanks for the video, I watched it, you look great, I'm building a false expectation there that I don't want you to have at this point. Okay, I might think you look great and I might want to do more homework, but one piece of video is not going to get us rushing down the street to watch you. One piece of video might get us to look at more game film. It might get us to call your coach. It might get us to talk to a few other people that watch your league and there are around you a little bit more, opposing coaches or other people we know that are out there in the field, other coaches at other levels. So, to use an advisor or not to use an advisor, that's a personal choice. Question comes up all the time. How much do you spend? How much do you spend on an advisor? Once again, no way I can give you a hard, fast number on this. I say on the low end, first of all, you have to compensate your advisor. You have to compensate your advisor at a reasonable price. They're not your agent, and if they treat you like they are your agent, in other words, they say, hey, look, I'll get you into college. If you get into college, you get into a D1 school and get a scholarship, I want X amount of dollars. Or, hey, look, I'll represent you now. If you sign a pro contract, I want X amount of percentage of your pro contract every year. You can't do that if you're going to play NCAA hockey. It's just not allowed. All right. So the first thing is you have to make sure you're compensating the advisor at a market level price. What's market level? I think, if you do a one-time payment to guys, I think that right now, and this is what I hear because I don't know if I always get a true answer from parents when they talk about this, and I definitely don't know if I'm getting a true answer from advisors, but I think between $3,000 and $5,000 for a lump sum, you pay them once and they're going to work with you until you either are done with hockey or you make it to pros. I think that's a reasonable number. Now, a lot of guys will go to these annual contracts, and you see a lot of advisors going to annual contracts because they want to do the right thing. Hire me for a year. If I'm doing everything I'm saying I'm doing, we'll continue the relationship. But at the end of the year, if you don't like what I'm doing, hey, we both walk away and everything's fine. I hear those guys get, $1,000, $1,500 a year, sometimes $2,000 a year. Put some comments in there if you know some numbers that are different than the numbers I'm giving you. But as far as hiring that advisor and what to do when you're hiring that advisor, as far as how much to pay them, it's also negotiable. Okay, it's nobody out there says it's unregulated business. Okay, there is no governing body that watches these. There's no like a bar association is where you can go if you have a problem with a lawyer. Okay, you got similar situations if you have a doctor. You have all kinds of different levels of help. There are government agencies, if you're using a financial advisor or a broker, that actually protect you, where you can complain and actually have it logged and disciplinary action taken against a financial advisor or a broker if they're doing something wrong. Somebody does something wrong, the only thing that can hurt an advisor is word of mouth. And that is, it's a very difficult thing for you to do as a parent. Why do you want to go out there and start attacking an advisor in public when you're not finished using an advisor? So now you're put in a bad situation. So most parents don't complain about the advisor, maybe after their kid's done, but by then it's usually water under the bridge. So it's a very difficult thing when you're in an unregulated industry like we have here. But it's also one of those things where it's worth what you pay. Usually, I think, from my perspective, advisors that charge, in the middle of the range to the higher end of the range, usually are the ones that are doing a good job. You can always get a discount bargain basement advisor, but if you're trying to play Division I hockey and you have the talent to play Division I hockey, and you have the talent to play Tier 1 or Tier 2 junior hockey, you probably don't want an advisor that only has a stable of players that are Tier 3 players or ACHA players. There's nothing wrong with Tier 3 hockey. There's nothing wrong with ACHA players. But if I'm trying to win a lawsuit, I'm not going to hire the local guy that does medical malpractice and has a very small practice in one of the small towns here in Rochester. If I've got a major case that I want to win, I'm going to try to hire the best lawyer I can to handle that situation for me. So just be careful on that side of things, on how you hire and who you hire. Let's add a few people, and then we'll get on to a little bit of this. Make sure you throw some comments on. Make sure you throw some questions on if you have them. We probably won't go a whole hour tonight, but we'll go as long as you are participating, and throw some questions and some comments to me here. Charles from Massapequa, very good to see you tonight. Jeff, good to see you from Long Island. Mike from Atlanta, good to see you too. Mike, I got your email. I know I got to respond to you. Haven't had a chance yet, have not been home yet, except for running right in the door to do this. Danielle, you're on in Colorado. Yeah, tell me what part of Colorado, if I haven't asked you that before. Rob, good to see you. Jeff is on from Charleston, South Carolina. Had a chance to spend some time in Charleston last year, vacationing with my wife. First time in Charleston for me. Really, really enjoyed it. So I see that the best billet family in America is on from Odessa. Tell me what's going on with Odessa. Odessa was the powerhouse at the beginning of the year. I don't know if maybe the spinach ran out or what, but boy, they got to get it rolling now if they're going to make a run at this year. We've got Jason on in Wisconsin, and we also have a Facebook user, is the way it shows up, from Scotland in the United Kingdom. Wow, that's pretty cool. I think Scotland is the first time. Hey, Danielle, thank you for Colorado Springs. Been out there a few times. Been out there for USA Hockey conventions. I've been out there when my son was committed to Air Force Academy, and spent some time on that campus too. Great place. And I also had one of the worst experiences of my life in Colorado Springs. And it really doesn't have anything to do with Colorado Springs, because it is unbelievably beautiful, but it's me being an idiot is why I had this terrible experience out there. So we're going out on an official visit. My wife, my son, and I, we get an Airbnb in this beautiful mountainside house. It's just going to be a really, really good trip. We get off the airplane in Denver. We hop in a car, and we have time to kill. We're real early in the day, so we got a lot of time to kill. So we decide we're going to head up to Pikes Peak. I should know this as a pilot. I should know that it's probably not a good idea to get off at an elevation when we're basically at sea level here, and get off a airplane that's at 5,000 to 7,000 feet, whatever the Denver airport is, and then go up to a 15,000 foot peak, all within a couple hours of getting off the airplane. I had a cracked tooth. I had a cracked molar that I didn't know I had, and when I got up to that higher elevation, an air bubble got inside the tooth and snapped it open. And it was probably the most painful experience I've had. So not only did I get the altitude issues that you normally have by going up to the top of Pikes Peak, but it was amplified. Most people will go into town a day or two or three before they try to go up to the top of Pikes Peak. I was an idiot. My family was put in jeopardy. I mean, I looked like a drunken sailor trying to drive home for the first 200 yards before calmer heads in the vehicle said, hey, there's something wrong with you. So, but besides that, I love Colorado Springs. Plan on being out there next year again for USA Hockey. And thanks for being a part of this. Perry, good to see you in Nassau County. And Scotland, tell us a little bit about where you're in Scotland. I spent spent some time in there 2 or 3 years ago. and really enjoyed it. Got a chance to play the world's oldest golf course, St. Andrews, and had some fun out there. So I'd like to hear what part of Scotland you're in. That'd be really fun to hear. So we got greetings from Southern California on there, and we also have Kelly in Seattle, Washington on too. So good to see everybody. Let's get on the next topic real quick. So if you have any questions about the advisor thing, first of all, let's finish up on this one because this is important. First of all, let me get just a sip of tea because I'm a tea guy now. Oh, by the way, if you're not a basketball fan, Michigan is in the hockey. They're in the tournament. I think they're number 1 seed. Basketball, they made the Sweet 16. Good day to be a Michigan Wolverine. So just thought I'd throw that in there for anybody that wanted to know. Okay, so let's get back to the advisor thing. Where can you get information? Of course, you can ask. You can ask people. You can triangulate information. You ask different people, you're going to get a little bit different opinions. Be careful asking teammates because I see so many parents that get paranoid that about sharing their advisor. Now, I get it. If I'm a left wing and I'm a 2002 birth year and another left wing 2002 birth year comes up and asks me, hey, what advisor do you use? I get it. There's a reluctancy to share that information. There's a reluctancy to help because you'd be competing against each other. And I fully understand that. But if the goalie parent comes up and asks you and you're a left wing or they're a year apart in age, try to help. Try to be nice about that. It doesn't make much sense to me why people are so. It does make sense, but I don't like it that people are so hesitant to help or they actually give misinformation on that. Happens all the time, much more than you think. But don't be that parent. I don't think that's a good situation. So where do you get information? Where do you go to try to hire an advisor if that's the way you want to go? First thing you do is, ask people. Second thing you do is ask your coach. You're going to find that if you're playing 16s or 18s, many coaches are working as advisors at that level or assistant coaches are working as advisors. Or if you're playing Tier 1 Elite, you're playing HPHL, you're playing Beast, you might find that they're actually involved with a team and they might have lots of people they talk to because they're involved as a scout for the USHL, the BCHL. They might be involved with an all. So if that's the case, ask an assistant coach, ask a head coach. The other thing too, you can Google. That's fine. Googling is not a problem at all. One other thing you can do, and I'm not going to do it tonight. I'm not going to pull up the page, but you can go to Elite Prospects, and it'll take a little work. They do list advisors, and they list all the advisors on there. So I'll pull it up, and I'm going to talk you through it. I'm not going to pull the screen up because I'm working without my my director device, so I'm doing this all by hand tonight. But if I pull up Elite Prospects, I can tell you right now the steps you want to take to look to find the advisor. So if I go into agent portal. Now, remember, I run the Elite. I pay $8, $9 a month for Elite Prospects. So I get some bells and whistles that you can pay for too. I think it's well worth it. I think you can get tons of information off Elite Prospects. And I do not get a dime from Elite Prospects. Although Elite Prospects, if you're watching, I do pump your tires all the time. Maybe it's time you start putting a deal together for me here. Anyway, if you hit on there, the agent portal, you can pull up all of the agents and they're listed alphabetically. For example, you look at A's, it's AMA Sports Agency, AA Sports Management. Now, some of these are European pro agents. Some of these are regular advisors like you're looking for. But I would say that probably 75 to 80% of the advisors out there are listed on this on Elite Prospects, and it's pretty easy to pull up their names. You have to do the homework. And so what would you do next? Okay, so I pull up Elite Prospects. I get on this agents portal. Now, they don't say family advisor. They say agents, although many of these are just purely family advisors. Okay, then what I have to do is I actually have to click on them. And when I click on them, what it'll do is it'll pull them up just like they pull up a player, but it shows you their most viewed client, and it also shows you all their clients that are listed on Elite Prospects. Now, unlike other parts of Elite Prospects where it's dead on accurate, up-to-date information, and they really, really are meticulous on the information, when it comes to advisors and it comes to agents, it's hit or miss. Not every kid that has an advisor is listed and attached to that advisor. You know, sometimes when you look at a kid's name and you look at their name, their address, position, and all that stuff, the first little dashboard you see on a player on Elite Prospects, it'll show who represents them right on there, and you can click on there. That's usually the first, second round draft pick kids. That's usually the top end players that have their name, the agent or the advisor's name attached to them right there. So that's one way to go about it, is to literally just go into Elite Prospects, hit the agent portal, and you're going to have literally just under the G's. I'm in G right now. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So do the math on that. You got hundreds of choices. Now, pretty easy too, because not all of them have a Canadian or an American flag in front of them. I probably would leave off like Hesh Hockey or another one I hear is Hockey Progress. Both of those are Swedish companies or Finnish companies or Swiss companies. I don't know all the flags. I don't have my glasses on. But I'd stay away from them. I'd really focus, to the most part, on the American or the Canadian family advisors. But if you can't find the person you're looking for there, where they're all listed, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult for you. But the nice thing about this is the top ones, and not top because they're the biggest, but top because they're meticulous about their job and they're professional about it, are listed on here. Now keep in mind too, if I pull up a couple of these different ones, let me think of one that I'm trying to pull one up that I know is bigger, but by no means do I want you to think that I'm endorsing anybody on here. So, okay, here's one, Kaizen. They have 86 clients listed. So if I pulled up Kaizen on Elite Prospects and went under there, now I can see, where their most popular clients are, what levels they're all playing at, and I can see if they're representing anybody that looks like me and acts like me. Okay, that's what you want. You want somebody that understands you and understands what you're about. So, for example, if you're a U16 player in the Midwest playing Tier 1 Elite, you would hope that they've got a pretty good understanding of U16, U18, or a client base that shows some U16, U18 blood in there, and also shows you some progression, some junior players that are a couple years older, and then some Division I and Division III hockey players that are a little bit older than that. So Elite Prospects, once again, the most underutilized tool out there for parents, and it's there for you to grab, and it's the information's on there for you to jump on. So let's I see a couple questions coming in. Let's jump on a couple questions, and then I'll jump on a couple other real quick topics, and we'll wrap it up after that. So Charles asked, what are advisors usually expected to do for my son? Okay, that's a great question, because a lot of times I ask the same question of guys that I've known for 10 or 20 years that are advisors. What the hell are you doing for that kid? Other times I know exactly what they're doing. However, by NCAA design, they're supposed to give you advice, purely. They're not supposed to be making phone calls for you. That's what an agent does. They're not supposed to be arranging deals for you to play on a junior team or a college team. That's what an agent does. Okay, they're supposed to purely be giving you the ability to, stabilize you in your decision-making process, give you information, and let you make choices. Now, that's not the reality of the world. The reality of the world is most family advisors pride themselves on knowing a lot of people in the industry. So they know a lot of coaches, they know a lot of scouts, they know a lot of general managers, they know a lot of assistant coaches and head coaches in the Division I and Division III ranks. And what they try to do is they try to race around, making lots of phone calls to try to get their players placed. Good advisors have a complement of services for you, and they bring you on board to help develop you mentally, physically, and with a wholesomeness of a hockey athlete, okay? They want to make sure that you are prepared. They want to make sure you know how to communicate with coaches. They want to make sure you know how to go through tryouts. They want to make sure that you know all the little things. A lot of things that I do here are what good advisors should be doing. They should have a full breadth of knowledge of all the decisions that need to be made. They should have a full breadth of knowledge of all the different junior leagues and choices you can make at juniors. The unfortunate part about this is that most advisors get into this with little or limited background. So if a guy, comes out of, let's say a kid grew up in Illinois, he plays youth hockey in Illinois, then he goes on to play in the CCHL for a season or two up in Canada, and then he jumps into playing D3 hockey in Wisconsin or Minnesota. I'm just making this up. Well, that's his knowledge base he's running off of, and he might have friends that jumped into a Division I assistant coaching job or a NAL coaching job. So there's an assumption that he knows a lot of people and he can help you. But if your knowledge base and your bias is limited towards certain leagues and certain ways of doing things, that's going to affect your client base, okay? Not every player needs to go to the CCHL. Okay, it's a great league. Nothing wrong with the CCHL. Some good teams up there, and players can develop and move out of there. However, you want an advisor that knows all the different leagues, literally understands how each and every junior league works. What are their nuances? Who's good? Who's not so good? What coaches actually put the effort into moving their players? Which ones don't? Then you want to make sure that player or that advisor actually understands which leagues are going to transition the best to whatever level you should be playing at. Not everybody comes through, but statistically, I can tell you, I can look at players at 16s and get a pretty good idea of which ones really have a shot of playing Tier 2, Tier 1 juniors, which ones really have a shot of playing college hockey. Now, I tell you right now, I don't try to project pro hockey players. It's not something in my nomenclature. It's not something in my job description. So I really don't try to put an effort into saying that kid's got pro potential. You can see it once in a while, but that's not where my head's at on this. But that's the idea of a good advisor is they should be educating you on how the process works, period. That's what they should be doing first and foremost. And by teaching you how to be a better communicator, how to email, how to talk, how to text to coaches and to advisors, or to scouts, I should say, that is going to help you out drastically. How to approach people at tryouts, how to approach coaches at rinks. All these things need to be taught. Okay, you don't naturally at 16 or 17 years old know how to handle yourself. I mean, even though, no matter how good you are as parents, the one thing about it is you're limited by being a parent, meaning as well as I do, only 1%, maybe less than 1% of whatever you said sticks. You need an outsider to help you. Even if you're saying everything and doing everything right, hearing it from another person on the outside always helps solidify whatever you're doing as a parent. That's what a good advisor should be doing. On top of that, after they prepare you mentally and physically, a lot of guys will run their own camps where they bring all their clients in and they do summer skill camp stuff, and they're very good skill guys too. That's fine. That's a plus. That's a bonus. A lot of advisors will run showcase teams. That's fine. That's a great thing to look for in an advisor if you're a younger player, to be able to get on his showcase team, get out there and play with his other clients, and also be able to play in showcases and do those things. That's fine. That's great. The last thing they should be doing, which is important, it doesn't mean that last is not least, but they should be trying to open doors for you and opportunities for you by making those phone calls and endorsing you and your ability to play at the right level at the right time. So all those things are things that advisors should be doing, but by no means is the only thing they do is saying, I'll make some phone calls. You hire me and I'll make a couple phone calls for you. I'll get you on a good junior team, which is literally what 75% of them do. Literally, that's their sales pitch. Yeah, I'll make a phone call for you. I'll make some phone calls for you. If that's the opening pitch when you talk to them, I'd probably keep looking because there are better advisors out there. So hopefully that helps a little bit on that one. Let's jump on to another question here. Rob's got a question that says, hi, the son is an 04 and doing the St. Louis Null to size himself up. Already seen interest from NA3HL teams and we'll be doing the USPHL skates in Chicago. Haven't talked to an advisor, but I'm sure that's coming soon. Okay, that was a nice comment. Thanks. I thought there was a question embedded in there, Rob, but thank you for the comments, and hopefully this is helping you. And knock 'em dead. Let's talk a little bit about, taking a second. I know we're jumping around a little bit, but let's talk a little bit about upcoming showcases and really the pre-draft skates. You mentioned the USPHL pre-draft skate. The Null's got pre-draft skates coming up. There's so many people that are naysayers about pre-draft skates. They're money grabs. Okay, how much are you paying for a stick? You want to talk about money grabs? The whole sport's a money grab. How much are you paying for skates? How much are you paying for ice time? Okay, if you're going to balk because you got to pay a couple $100s to go to a pre-draft skate where they're going to, skate you for 2 or 3 days straight and you're going to be on the ice multiple times a day, I don't know what to tell you because, first of all, I can tell you right now, everything in hockey should be profitable for whoever's running these things. Nobody should be giving you anything, although when you make a Tier 2 team or a Tier 1 team, you're given hockey. When you get a scholarship, you're giving free hockey. But because you have to go to a pre-draft skate and pay for it, the people out there that are doing that, you're on the discussion group too. I wish you'd DM me and we could have a one-on-one conversation about this because I really don't understand that logic, okay? I don't go many places where I don't pay for whatever I'm getting, okay? Like you can say, well, you can try out for high school sports and you don't have to pay for that. Well, yeah, you can. Play high school. That's probably not going to get you where you're going unless you're in Minnesota, okay? I'm not trying to be a jerk on this. I'm just trying to say, look, if you're looking for negatives, you can find negatives of anything. The majority of people that run pre-draft skates utilize those pre-draft skates to better their team, communicate with the public. Because remember, pre-draft skates, I can tell you for years, the USHL pre-draft skates were never intended, for the first few years they did them, they were never intended to pull good players in. What they were intended to do was expose people more to the USHL from non-traditional hockey markets. East Coast kids, Midwest kids, Southern kids, West Coast kids, they were bringing in hockey players from all over the place, and virtually none of them were getting drafted. None of them were getting attention from individual teams. In fact, the first few ones, rarely was there more than 2 or 3 quote-unquote scouts or coaches from the USHL in the stands. Usually it was 1 or 2 that were on the low end of the totem pole that got stuck up there with a clipboard. Not much was done initially. Now it's evolved. They've all evolved. But my point there was, what you look at sometimes as being there for one purpose is usually there for multiple purposes. Now, I bring that up not to say don't go to a USHL pre-draft skate. They've evolved. They've become better. They've become tons better. And they are an avenue for you to get involved with that team and for you to get on the radar of those teams. Okay? Getting on the radar is extremely important. Most people aren't going to get drafted into the USHL because they go to a pre-draft skate. But does it get you on a list? Does it get you talked about? Does it get you invited back? Does it open a possibility for you to be an affiliate? Does it spark a phone call from that program to your U16 or your U18 coach? All those things happen, all the time, from a pre-draft skate. And, you definitely have teams out there. There's a lot of teams out there that have a long history of getting multiple players out of their pre-draft camps onto either a tender, into a main camp that eventually make their roster, or drafted. Because remember, there's 3 ways to get on the roster, and it all comes out of main camp. You can be tendered and make it through to the team roster. You can be drafted and make that, or you can get into that main camp and just outperform the tenders and the drafts. And I believe that there's rarely a team in the North American Hockey League, NCDC level, BCHL level, and I'll leave the USHL out because I can't speak for them because I go to I go to a lot of their camps, but I don't have the knowledge to tell you if it's true there. But in the rest of the cases, there's usually multiple players that are undrafted and untendered players that make it to the fall team roster. Okay? Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4. Because any good team is inviting good players that didn't get drafted or didn't get tendered to main camps. Okay? So don't give up because of a draft or because of a tender situation. Keep going. But getting back to the question about the issue around these pre-draft camps, they're essential if that's the league you want to play in and you haven't been invited yet to a main camp. If I'm not invited to a main camp and I really believe I have the talent to play in the NCDC, the USPHL Premier, the North American Hockey League, whatever level that I'm at, and I haven't got an invitation yet to a main camp, you better believe I'm going to try to get to 2 or 3 pre-draft skates and try to get myself noticed there so that I can move on and progress from there too. Now remember, maybe I'm just not quite at the North American Hockey League level yet. I'm just not quite there. Why would I want to go to a pre-draft skate? Well, it's because almost every one of them is affiliated with an NA3HL team directly. And if they're not, there's usually somebody from an NA3HL team there, especially if you're going to the league ones, because if you go to the league in a NAHL pre-draft, there's going to be a ton of exposure to the NAPHL and to the NA3HL. So it gives you the opportunity to get looked at and potentially get offers from a national array of coaches from all over the place. That's not a bad thing. So anyway, let's get on to some other questions here. Hey, good to see you, Chris, in Madison, Alabama. Vinny, about time to see you back there and coming on strong, saying hi to the rest of your friends, but not saying hi to me. Okay, Jeff's got a question. He says, how many drafts will come from the USHL and the NAL this year for 06? I can tell you right now, 06s will not see time in the North American Hockey League. And I'm going to do this while I'm talking to you. I'm going to pull up the North American Hockey League, and I'll just pull up 05s. Hey, Vinny, thanks for saying hi. Let's pull up the North American Hockey League. And once again, this is with the premium or whatever that higher level is on Elite Prospects. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to filter. I wished I could bring this up and show you what I'm doing, but I'll talk you through it. What I'm doing is I'm going into this, and I've done this many a times for you on this live stream, and I've got videos online on how to use this tool. But if I go into the North American Hockey League, and all I want to do is put in a age, so I'm going to just put in a birth year, and I'm going to put in the birth year 2005. And what I'll get is I'll get some, and I'll explain why there is some. But I'm going to put in the birth year 2005, and let's see what comes up for the amount of players that have played this year in the North American Hockey League. So 2005s, according to Elite Prospects, I've got 2 players. One played 25 games and one played 3. So both part-time players. One came up for a few games, and I bet you if I looked into him a little bit more, I think you'll find that that player probably started at the beginning of the season. I'm not going to do that right now. 3 goalies. One had 2 games, one had 2 games, and one had 0 games. So of real players that played 05-wise, you've got 1. Okay, that's 05s. Now you can say, well, what about the draft? So once again, on Elite Prospects, if I go up to the top and I hit the draft button, which is in the top right corner, and then I change the draft from the NHL draft, I can change it over to the North American Hockey League draft. Here we go, the North American Hockey League entry draft, and I put the 2021 draft on. I can even see who was drafted at that age. It doesn't break it down by age on this one here, but I would bet, I would venture to say there's, maybe 1 or 2, and I see in the comments that I think 105 was drafted in the NAL last summer. That's probably true. There's probably 1, but I can tell you there's only 1 player that played 25 games. Vinny, do you know where he ended up playing? If you do, throw that in the comments, because I don't know the name. I'll tell you what, I'll just type the name. You said it's Lafreniere. Let's type in Lafayette and we'll get the answer. Wow, we got everybody right here. I-E-R-E, as long as you're spelling it right. Let's see. If that's Jack, he is an 05D, and he is playing hockey in a prep school right now. He's playing for Seton Hall. So if he was drafted, and I'm looking to see if he even played. He was playing U16, went to play Seton Hall. And I'm looking, and he was drafted by the Northeast Generals. So they were taking a flyer. They were trying to put themselves in a situation that if prep didn't work out, or they're trying to build a relationship with him, I highly doubt that anybody drafted anybody and expected an 05 to play in the league. It's just it's an older league. You can see that the number of 04s is pretty low too. So I would not expect much. Now there's every year the league talks about, you hear, we want to go younger. And it's not coming. I'm not talking from the league executive office making those statements, but you hear about scouts, you hear about coaches, you hear assistant coaches talking, we're trying to get a younger roster. So from my perspective, a younger roster in the North American Hockey League is a player with 2 years of juniors left, 3 years of juniors left, meaning you're getting a kid that's 18. That's a young roster in the North American Hockey League, somebody that you got a couple years left with. So hopefully that helps a little bit. That's a great question, though. As far as the USHL, remember the USHL is different because they have a mandate to play 16s. They'll have, and don't quote me, I say there are 4 or 5 players that they're mandated to have on the roster. They have to dress players that are younger on the roster. It's mandated. It's right into the, it's interwoven into the rules of the league that they have to have a young roster. They're limited on the bottom with the young guys, or they have a threshold they have to hit on the bottom, and they're limited on the top. They can't have a lot of older players too. So you have young guys, you have middle guys, and you have very few older guys. Where'd all those older guys go? They go to the North American Hockey League. So you see age outs or guys that are 19, turning 20, that are plateaued in the USHL. A lot of times they'll jump over the North American Hockey League because there's no room. Their team had 6 guys at their age or 8 guys at their age. They chose 1 or 2 guys that they wanted to keep around. Boom, the rest of them have to go play somewhere else, or they have to go on to college at that point. So hopefully that helps. But the USHL is a little bit different ball game when it comes to how their draft works. So, all right, here's a question coming in from a Facebook user. Once again, depends on which platform you're on. Sometimes I get names, sometimes I don't. What advice would you give a 2000 player from Europe looking to find a suitable team in the U.S. or Canada and to continue their development? So there's, I'm not sure if this is the same one that's been on our discussion group, but there's been players from Europe on our discussion group lately with the same question that pops up. And, there's so many opportunities in different directions now. There is no right answer. There are so many, you can play 16s, you can play 18s. Okay, well, at that age, you have to play age appropriate. So you can play youth hockey at your appropriate age. Then on top of that, there's academies, and there's academies that are right in rinks. I'm not talking about prep school. I'm talking about the different academy approaches that are around everywhere now. And many of you use these academies, and they are a very successful way to get involved when you're an out-of-towner, because you can still have your education component, and you get the bonus of being right at the rink and getting more ice time and being right in the mix of it. It's great for a rink rat. If a kid grew up as a rink rat, these academies are awesome. And then there's formal academies. You can look into the whole list of the Culvers and the Shaddocks and all of the prep schools that are in the East Coast. Those are all good options. Remember, it's not rocket science to look this up. It swings. The pendulum swings year to year. However, your 3 components that make up Division I rosters and make up guys that make it to the NHL is Minnesota high school hockey, youth hockey, 16s, 18s, and prep. Okay, you're gonna play in one of those 3 components. Then you're gonna move on to juniors. It all funnels back to juniors. So if you're playing at a high-level high school hockey in Minnesota, you're playing high-level 16, 18 youth hockey, or you're playing at a good prep school, unless you're just going to step out. Remember, every year there's like one, maybe two guys that step right out of prep and go right into D1 hockey. And they usually have a NHL draft number next to them. In other words, they're really high-end players, and they can move right on, and they're wanted to move on. Just like a kid coming out of the National Development Program out of Ann Arbor can move right into a D1 program at 18 after 2 years in the National Development Program, because they're that good. They're that good. The rest of us, it's playing in one of those three buckets. So the easiest bucket to get that's economic and it's accessible to most people around the world is youth hockey, 16s, 18s. You can look at markets. You can reach out to it in the way, if you've ever listened to anything I do, I believe you start at the top. You start with the number one team in the nation, and you work your way backwards from there until you find a home. What I mean by that is, you go into my hockey rankings and you start looking at what are considered historically the best teams. I wouldn't just look at this last year, but I'd look at the year before, the year before, the year before. Who's historically always good? Okay, for a long time, like Vince had said, it's the New Jersey Avalanche was one of the top teams. The Bell Tires, the Victory Hondas, the Chicago Mission. Those are the programs on the youth side that are always historically good. Now, once again, the pendulum swings. The Junior Grizzlies jump up here, and then you'll get for a few years you had the LA Junior Kings out in California jumped up to the top. This year, St. Louis has an awesome U18 team, and you see the pendulum swing a little bit. But historically, you look for the teams that are always on top, and you start there. You start with the ones that are stable, the ones that are have the same coaching staff and philosophy year in and year out, and you work down. Almost every single youth hockey program now that's at a high level has some affiliation or an avenue to a local academy, okay? It could be a brand academy that you see all over the place, or it can be just in their rink. They have an academy that runs and does the schooling portion of it, the online schooling, and some even have classrooms. So hopefully that helps a little bit on that. You're more than welcome to it's a great time for me to give a plug for my services. Once again, I do chaos calls, 1 hour calls with people to help them kind of sort out the direction. Usually it's when you're at a crossroads and you're trying to decide to go to A or B, with or without advisors. You can DM me straight and we can set up a phone call. And, I do charge for those phone calls, but this time of year, it's really, really busy. The calls might be at 8 or 9 o'clock at night to be able to fit in some calls. So, but if you need that service, I do offer that, and I can try to help you in that situation. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Let's look and see what other questions we have on here. Okay, here's one. Out of curiosity, is there more information on the potential new league on the West Coast? Only what I posted on the Junior Hockey Advisor Facebook page. That's the only information I know right now. I can tell you that this is, once again, I'm in my fourth decade of doing this. I've heard these splashes before. I've seen these splashes before, and I've heard how they're going to change the world with this new junior league and this different way of doing it. And hey, look, it looks like they've got some name people behind this. It looks like this could work, but once again, one of the guys is an owner of a USA, or was involved, was a owner of and an executive for one of the USHL teams. So he understands that the affiliation that the USHL has with not only NCAA hockey, but the USHL's relationship with USA Hockey and their affiliation with the NHL is pretty strong. So I can't believe that they would try to take on that level of player, which leaves the North American Hockey League, which is just a half a step behind the USHL with all those same relationships. Maybe not as strong of a relationship with the NHL, but absolutely just as strong a relationship with the NCAA Division I programs and with USA Hockey. They're all working together. They're all strong. is formidable units and business organizations. They're strong. So, there's a lot of reasons why I just slow down when I hear about these new leagues starting. This may be the 8th or 10th, 12th, I don't know, league that's come to fruition or tried to start just in the last 20 years. So you can say, well, look what happened with the USPHL. The USPHL wasn't a new league. The USPHL was the EJHL, which was an unbelievably good league. I was part of the ownership of a franchise in that. And what they did was they kept a certain few of us, and they basically reorganized to get rid of the bad apples, the people they didn't think were at the level that they wanted to be at. And you can say, did it work or not work? Well, statistically, it's very simple to do. All you got to do is go back and look at the EJHL numbers as far as production. And one would argue the EJHL 7-8 years ago had more NHL draft picks than the NCDC has of fresh NCAA commitments in an annual year. That's the difference in the two leagues. That league was not a new league. So when people say, oh, look, they were successful, they started a new league and made it work. No, they rebranded a league, they remarketed a league. And to some extent, it's extremely successful because with the Premier side and with their Elite and NCDC, they've got market share. They've got a tremendously big league. But big also means that it's an uncontrollable amount of Premier teams as far as the talent level and how watered it gets in some markets. Some markets are extremely strong, just incredibly good Premier level teams. Other markets, not so much. So it's hard to control when you get as big as they are right now. So, but do I have any answer on that? No, I don't. I probably gave you a little more than you really wanted to hear, Danielle, but thank you so much for asking the question. Let's see. Okay, this one. So rank the leagues: USHL, NOL, NCDC, BCHL. Excuse me. After that, it gets murky. No, it doesn't. And I would say, clearly, even including the major juniors out of Canada, for the last 4 or 5 years, the USHL has put itself in a dominant role. The amount of number one draft picks coming out of that league and the amount of players that are stepping right in and becoming stars in the NHL level, it surpasses any of the individual leagues. Now, you add the WHL, the CHL is made up of the WHL, the OJ, and the Quebec League. That's your 3 major juniors. They're considered pro leagues to us in the States because if you go into that route and you play there, you're not eligible for NCAA hockey. Now, the interesting thing about this is collectively they're still better than the USHL, but you break them down individually. The USHL runs the table right now, and the players still are heading to NCAA hockey, which allows those players, after they get done with their juniors, to still develop, get stronger. Limited amount of games, a lot of effort in getting to be stronger, smarter, wiser, more mature, and then to be able to develop into a pro player after they play anywhere from 1 to 4 years of college hockey. So the USHL, hands down, best league out there. There's a toss-up between the BCHL and the North American Hockey League. I have a bias. I think the North American Hockey League, by numbers and by exposure, it's easier to access games for coaches. I think it's a better league. And it's hard to argue how good the South is, because the South pumps out such unbelievable players right now that are sturdy and can jump into playing hockey in any NCAA Division I program for the most part. That's the division. That's why they win national championship out of national championship in the South. So I'd give the nod to the NOL. The BCHL, the pandemic was not good to the BCHL as far as image, as far as stability. People questioned, how this is going to work, because right in the middle of the pandemic, they decided to become independent and move away from the CJHL. It's still an awesome league. It's still high production. It's still a league, but it's clearly a top 3. You'll get an argument all the time between the NOL and the BCHL on who's the number 2. And depending on which statistics I use, I can manipulate the statistics to make the BCHL look better because as a ratio of a team roster, they usually have extremely high numbers of D1 players. They're a smaller league. And the NAL overall numbers for how many players they produce to move on to the NCAA level is a much higher number, but they also have 29 teams. So once you get past the USHL, the North American Hockey League, and the BCHL, the next league that's hands down the league to be in is the Alberta League, the AJHL. Still has free hockey out there, so it's only the BCHL and the AJ that has free hockey. They still pay for your billets. They do an extremely good job. Brooks, the team, the Brooks Bandits, sometimes Whitecourt, but Brooks always can play with any team in the nation, USHL, whoever. They're just always stacked. They're unbelievable in the amount of talent. And if you haven't been out there to see what they do, it's hard for, so many people argue against the AJ, but you get out there and watch the AJ. Get out there and go to some of those rinks and you'll be amazed. Great fan bases, loyal smaller towns that are very loyal to their teams. Usually a well-funded program. Usually some of the programs like the Olds Grizzlies and a few others, are always struggling, and they're really trying to get back to the glory days where they were a national champion. But that's number 4, hands down. Number 5 and 6, you're going to probably the CCHL out of Canada is probably number 5 right now across the board. And this is statistics. Who's driving product? What's product? Fresh commitments every year to the next level. Those are the leagues you want, and that's the gauge I'm using. You can say, well, that league develops better than this league. Well, the end result is how many Division I players are they putting out? And if you don't want to use Division I players, how many Division III players are they putting out? But those are the things that actually matter to me. You could say, hey, I build the greatest car. Well, where are they at? Are they on the road driving? Do they last? Do they make it down the road, or do they fall apart? Okay, and that's a terrible analogy. That wasn't even good. That wasn't even close to being good. The bottom line on this is you want to see production. That's the number I can use. I have a few different videos out there. One of them is an incredible video to watch on this is the junior rankings, and just go into my hockey, go into Junior Hockey Advisor. I'm looking at my hockey screen as I'm doing this. Go into Junior Hockey Advisor on YouTube and look at my video on rankings and how I dispel the rankings. But if you go in there, you'll see that I broke it down by how many commits you got in each team, because these subjective rankings come out. I'm not talking about my hockey rankings because that's a different process. But you get these subjective rankings that come out from the CJHL and from people in this industry that try to make themselves sound like they know what they're talking about. And they put teams in there because it's politically correct. The CJHL is a league. That's the umbrella above all the Canadian Junior A leagues. They'll take a couple examples from every one of their leagues and put them in their top 20. Okay, it doesn't work that way. The BCHL should have the vast majority of the teams in the top 20 because they have they have a stranglehold on the Division I talent, except for a limited amount in the AJHL, a limited amount in the CJ, and then 1 or 2 in the other leagues. Okay, so the CCHL is a step or 2 down from the AJ right now. And then after that, I see you put the NCDC up there. You got to be careful on the NCDC because there's some great teams in the NCDC. They're expanding again. I don't know what that means. That usually means when you expand, you dilute your talent pool a little bit for your league. But be careful with the NCDC on thinking that it's a good league to go to develop to become a Division I player. Take their top teams, look where their players come from. Their top teams are loaded with players that had their commitments before they showed up. Okay? New Jersey Hitmen are an unbelievably good team. They're like Brooks in many aspects. Toby's been their coaching for years. They've got a structure in place. They've got an ownership and a management group that supports them very well. And they have a great on-ice product. And they've got a lot of D1 talent on the team. And they rarely get more than 2 or 3 Division I commitments a year. Versus just about every single NAL team, last place team, will have 4 or 5 commitments a year. In a bad year, 3. Okay? The whole league the whole NCDC can have less commitments than one team in the USHL fresh commitments, or one team in the BCHL, or one team in the NUL. So I'd be very careful on where the NCDC fits in. Usually, statistically, they come in around 7 or 8. Usually, it goes USHL, North American Hockey League, and BC, flip flop them wherever, however you're stacking your coins there. Then it's the AJ, the CCHL, sometimes OJ or the Saskatchewan League, and then somewhere down 1 or 2 spots in there you'll find the NCDC. And hey, look, am I a fan of the NCDC? I'm not against the NCDC. It's not like I'm going out there and saying that's a terrible league, stay away from it. I think there's some great people coaching in that league. I think there's some great ownership. Overall, I don't think that every team is, but there's very few leagues that have great ownership on every single team. Do I like the way they do some things? I can critique that, but that's not the point. It may be a great fit for you, and it may be a great place for you to play. And I don't want to take that away from anybody by dissuading people from, looking at opportunities. Just don't think you're going to – I think they're historically averaging, since they started, less than 12 commitments, fresh commitments a year as a league. You don't believe me? Go to College Hockey Inc., go into their development page, and it has a fresh commitment list that's up to date right now. Just count the last 12 months and see where they fit in. You'll find that the numbers are pretty darn low. So with that said, let's move on after that. Michael, thanks for the question. Did that help? I don't know if it helped or not. Let's see what else we got here. With youth hockey, after tryouts, if you made the team, but with juniors, it's not clear you made the team, and the timing is between all the camps. Can you talk about the timing? Absolutely. This is great. So juniors works this way. No matter what, you get tendered, you're a veteran player, moving to, go to a camp with another junior team, you're a draft pick. All of that goes out the window at main camp. Now, clearly, if you're a veteran player that's skilled, you're throwing up numbers, it's pretty safe to say you'll be asked to return to the team, okay? But not every veteran that goes into main camp has a guaranteed spot for that team for next year. They're really, technically, it can be a verbal arrangement, but technically, unless you're put on that roster coming out of main camp, the summer roster, there's a protected list coming into main camp, there's a protected list coming out of main camp, and then that list narrows down in the fall. That doesn't matter. Main camp, you go in there, let's say there's 8 teams, usually 8 to 10 teams is main camp, run with 8 teams, and that means that there's 160 to 200 kids, trying out to get to that magical 30, 35 that make it into the fall roster. Okay. The bottom line is, you really, even if you go to that main camp and you get selected, and you're a young player, you're still at U16, U18 level age-wise, it would behoove you to make sure you keep the door open. Okay. You can still go and try out for a 16 or 18 team and make sure that you've got a spot in the fall. And I'd just be honest with you, coach, I'm going to go to because most U18 coaches expect their kids to go to main camps. They expect their kids to skate with these junior teams. That's what the whole purpose is, to get them exposed to these junior teams. So even if you make it out of main camp, let's say the team keeps 30 kids and you're one of those 30 kids. Well, don't forget that roster is going to get trimmed 2 more times in the month of September. It's going to get trimmed at, I think you start off with the first week 27 and 25. Don't quote me on those. The pandemic threw the numbers off a little bit, but roughly 25 kids is what the roster breaks down to right off the bat. So 5 kids are gonna either go to other junior teams or going to go back to U18s. Most of the kids that are younger go right back to a U18 team if they didn't make that NUL team, so they can stay affiliated with that NUL team and potentially get games in later if they were that close. If they were the 26th kid out of the, when they kept 25 and you're number 26, I'm pretty damn sure that coach is going to make an arrangement to keep you involved with that team as an affiliate, let you come back and skate in games here and there to get you prepped for the year after, and they'll want to keep that relationship with you. I would say in most cases that's the the situation. So the timeline is, between now and the first step is the pre-draft skates that are coming up. Teams have been working since tenders opened up back in November, December, when you're eligible to start tendering kids. They've been working on the players that they can touch. The players they can touch right now, and I'm saying this is a figurative touch, meaning reach out to players. Those players are 16, 18 players, prep players, high school players. We can talk to those players. We can reach out to those players. We can meet with them. We can invite them in to skate. What we can't do is we can't reach out to other junior teams and other junior leagues. We can reach out to the NCDC players because they're not affiliated with USA Hockey, but as a general rule, you try to still respect those teams so that you don't start a war with programs. But you're reaching out and trying to get your tenders and your draft list built this time from December on. But the pre-drafts are the first step. After the pre-drafts, you have the actual draft. And you can kind of get a lay of the land on who gets drafted and who they are. If you're really serious about playing on the Null, you go back and you look at the drafts. You look at who they're, what teams are pulling who, where they're pulling them from, and you kind of get a sense of who makes the rosters off those drafts too. You can put as much homework into this as you want. And I guarantee you this, if you go that far, if you go back and pull the last 3 or 4 years of drafts, you're doing more than 90% of the advisors out there have done, okay? They don't have as much of a statistical understanding of this and a history of this as you would expect. Most of them go off gut feel. But, after the draft, it comes main camp. Main camp's usually, for most teams, sometime in July, or maybe the first week of August, but mostly it's in the middle of July. Main camp happens. That usually runs anywhere from 3 to 5, 6 days. And then a roster is posted at the end of the main camp that takes you into the fall. And nothing really happens with a team between July at the end of main camp and until you report to the team. The last week of August usually is when most teams report. It also depends on when they kind of back it up from when the showcase in Blaine is going to happen. Then teams kind of figure out how much gap they have there. But most of that's already been scheduled and done already. I hope that helps a little bit. I don't know if I answered the full question, but it kind of gives you a sense of the timeline and what happens in between, and then where players are headed if they don't make teams. So here's another one. So how does the SJ compare? Now, once again, let's be careful on something. The SJ, the MJ, the CCHL, the NCDC all have incredibly good programs. They have good coaches. They have good teams. Now, they might not have Division I talent, but they're very competitive leagues, and they're great places to play. The SJ and the MJ are usually running in that 5-6 spot, 5-6-7 spot as far as the leagues. And it's a great league to play in. There's nothing wrong with playing in the SJ. You're going to get great local support. You're going to get, beautiful locker rooms. A lot of the rinks are really, really super special in the SJ. I just did I post that video yet? I may not have posted. I just did a video that broke down some of the different SJ locker rooms and some of the new rinks that they've had, relative new rinks the last 10 years. But there's some phenomenal places to play in the SJ. But, if you're looking to go to the NCAA, especially as an American, it's a tough row. If I were an American, and statistically speaking, I'm either going to want to play in the CCHL or the AJ to have my best opportunity to move on into the North American Hockey League or potentially into the USHL, because you're not going to get there. Statistically, you're not going to get there from the SJ. You're not going to go to NCAA Division I from there. Now, there's always that, well, this kid did it. Okay, yeah, there's a kid that'll get committed out of the SJ, usually with some extenuating circumstances, but there's always the one. The majority don't, and it's not a big league for Americans. You get some Minnesota kids, some North Dakota kids, maybe some Upper Peninsula kids that are not that far. Their families can go watch them play, so they opt there versus playing in the AJ. Now, the idea, though, is, I've got a video out there I would recommend you watch. It's called the North American Hockey League Secret Weapon, the CJHL. and I break down all the different leagues, and I break down why the North American Hockey League is so dependent on the CJHL. Pandemic changed things a little bit, but it's still a good video to get an overall breadth of that and try to get a better answer on that. So I'm a big fan of the SJHL. I like the league. Now, here's a little secret. We still have a nice audience going. We actually grew into a bigger audience than I thought tonight. Here's a little secret. Every year, there's a cup, a CJHL, and I forget the name of it, like the Robertson Cup is in the Null. Well, they play for the cup, the overall league. So if you're a league champion in the AJ, it used to be the AJ and the BCHL had to play off against each other to have a champion to come out of the West. The MJ and the SJ, the Manitoba and Saskatchewan, had to play off against each other to be the Midwest version of moving up. Then you had the Ontario Junior Hockey League, the CCHL, the Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League, and the SIJHL coming out of Ontario with one champion. Then you had Quebec and who am I missing? The Maritime playing off on the East Coast for one champion. And then they'd all collectively come in and have the national championships in whatever city's hosting that year. Now, the host city, that team, whoever's hosting, knows they're going to be in the championship round. It's kind of like the way I'm not sure if USA Hockey still does this. They used to have the host team in every market that hosted the Nationals. The local team got a bid into the Nationals. So sometimes those teams, like when we had the bid when I was coaching here in Rochester, that was my best year ever. We were loaded with talent because we're able to recruit and saying, hey, look, we have an automatic bid to the Nationals. Well, the same thing happens in juniors, in Canadian Junior A. So you will have a team, two things. One is that the host team. So if let's say I used Brooks earlier, a couple years ago, Brooks hosted, okay? Now, with that said, you also have teams that are ramping up to make a run at it. So a lot of times you'll have a team that says, hey, look, we've got a really good shot at making it to Nationals this year. It's just like youth hockey. There'll be players that will gravitate towards a team because they know they got a really good shot at coming out of the CC and representing the CCHL in the Nationals. So you'll see teams, kind of loading up either because they're the host team or because they've got an edge locally. They got a lot of returning players and they're going to load up with other players to make a run. So you got to pay attention to that. You got to pay attention to who's the host team. And if you're looking at these other leagues like the SJ, one of the things you might say is, hey, who's loading up to make a run, at the Cup this year? Who thinks they're going to do it? And I apologize. Normally I know the name of that Cup. That's going to bother me forever that I know that name. So hopefully that helps a little bit. But the SJ is a good league. It does not compare to the North American Hockey League. The North American Hockey League, every single team has numerous players that are already NCAA Division I commitments or going to be NCAA Division I commitments by the end of the year, or they're younger players they'll get their chance next year for that commitment, or they're going to go play at the highest levels of D3 hockey. The top 10 schools, almost everybody that comes out of the NAL that moves on to Division III hockey is playing for a top 10 team. It's just the way it works. The top 10 really recruits hard, and they should, because they can give academic money. They can do some things that some of the Division I programs can't. They can make it very affordable. The question always comes in, do I want to be a 29th guy playing at Ferris State? And I love Ferris State. Do I want to be the 29th guy there paying full boat? Or do I want to go to a division school like right down the street from Ferris is Adrian, down the street, a couple hours away. Adrian, who's the number one team in the nation, who can put an academic package together for me and grants together for me, and I'm going to school for $5,000 a year versus at Ferris because they're NCAA Division I and they have to be in compliance with it. They can't just throw money around because they have to play by the rules of NCAA Division I hockey. I have to pay full boat, okay? Sometimes it's best to look the other way. Or the other way meaning to play D3 and be a bigger fish in a smaller pond. So how does it compare to the NCDC? Statistically, at times it's just as good. I think right now the NCDC's on a high note, so you probably see the NCDC being a little bit ahead there. So let me get through a couple more questions and we're going to call it a night. I did not expect to go this long. I'm glad that we all hung in there. I always appreciate being asked questions to get the in-depth background. Hey, thanks so much for the comment. I appreciate that. Let's see if there's any more. If a player goes to a camp and his advisor is not necessarily liked by the coaches, will the kid still get a look? So I have this argument all the time with my head coach. There's advisors out there that I just don't trust farther than I can throw. I'm not going to mention names. That's not, it doesn't make any sense. But internally, there's advisors out there that I feel that way about. I don't trust them. I don't particularly like them. And he's always making sure that we keep the door open to see what the player's about versus just shutting off advisors because they're not so good people. Okay? So the answer is, if it were me in charge, you're lucky I'm not, because I would shut the door down to so many advisors because ethically I just don't like the way they do business. Okay. However, calmer heads prevail, and more open level thinking is involved with most teams. And I got to be honest with you, I don't have patience for people that don't return calls, don't take care of their clients, don't take care of these kids, and don't deal professionally across the board with everybody. I don't have patience for that. But that's why I'm not the general manager of the team. That's why I'm just working in player development. Okay. I could not do that and service the team with 100% open door policy on this. So no, I would say that most kids, no matter who their advisors are getting a fair shake. Now, once a kid's on a roster, if the advisor keeps poking his head in and getting involved, you'll see a kid get traded because of an advisor or get cut because of an advisor. And I got plenty of gory stories about that. But for a tryout and for the first, moving into a team and getting a fair shake, I would say it's a pretty good assessment that you're going to get that against my better judgment. I mean, and so far, our coach and our ownership have been right, and I have been wrong to go in there with that preconceived notion or my bias towards the advisor. So in most cases, I think people look at it the way our management does instead of the way I look at things. I tend to, be very impatient with people that I don't trust. So I hope that answers your question, Mary Jo. Let's see. What ages typically make up the CJ? The CJHL, some of the teams are a little bit younger because the Canadian players will opt not to go to midgets, to midget major. So you'll see AJ guys with midget major level players. But for the most part, you can look this up. I don't have the statistics right in front of me. It's easy to find on Elite Prospects. You can actually pull up the league. It'll tell you exactly how old they are, and you can compare them to every other league. But the CJHL, league by league too, I think the CC is probably older than the OJ. The OJ tends to get a lot of guys that didn't make it into the OHL. But I really can't help. Chris, thank you so much for Centennial Cup. It was slipping my mind. And also thanks again, Chris, for putting this information out there. Hosted right there. SJHL team is hosting. So what a great opportunity if you're looking for an SJ team and you can make that team. You get to play in the Centennial Cup, which is a really, really cool experience. It's one of those other things that, until you've experienced it, until you've watched the Centennial Cup games, until you watch the emotions of the towns and the rinks and the passionate fan bases for these areas. Chris, it sounds like you know the area well. I'm sure that you look up there and you see they're probably already ramping up for their Centennial Cup hosting. And it's probably, is it for this season, the 22 season, or is this for 23 on where the Centennial Cup is? Normally I'm up on this, but I can tell you this pandemic is, because I don't travel as much to Western Canada, did not travel to Western Canada at all this year. So I'm not as up on the Centennial Cup as I normally am. No more auto bids for USHL or for USA Hockey Nationals. Probably a good thing. People like me took advantage of them. We made it all the way to the finals because of the fact that we knew we were going to host, and that was a fun run. We lost by 1 goal. I wished I had a goalie. Yeah, That would have been nice. Okay, where can I find the "We Can't Stand These Advisors" list? Mary Jo, I wished it was that easy. Nobody's going to tell you that. You know that. I'm probably telling you more than I should tell you right now by saying that. I'm just being honest with you. The bottom line is I can tell more about how advisors are, what people think about advisors from the 16s and 18 coaches more than I can from the junior coaches. 16 and 18 coaches will flat out tell you exactly how they feel about these guys. So, if you got a good relationship with your coach, and 16 or 18 coach, I'd start there because they'll probably give you an earful on what they really think. So, folks, we went way long tonight. I apologize for going so long. Thank you for sticking around so much. I hope this was helpful. I hope I wasn't too candid. I probably said more than I should about some things, but hey, that's kind of why I do what I do. I want to make sure you guys get as much information. Do me a favor. Those YouTube videos are hot right now. You got a lot of people watching our YouTube videos. Like and subscribe if you go over there to watch the YouTube videos. I sure would love the help. When I first started asking for help, we had about 200 people that were subscribed. We're up in the last few weeks. We got it up over. We're pushing towards 450 right now. But if you're not there, please jump on. Have a buddy jump on. Put your husband on too. Put your kids on too. Anything to get that like and subscribe up would really help us out a lot. And also our Facebook discussion page. If you're not a member of that, please jump on and become a member. I think you'll find it helpful. Lots of great videos. A couple I'd recommend are I've got one on the NOL draft process. I've got one on the NOL tender process. I've got one on how the rankings work, which will tell you where, how teams are, it's almost inherent. Teams that are good have all the draft picks and it works its way down. It's also the way, the league standings usually follow a track very similar to how many Division I commits they have. And that should also tell you about how good the league is. When you look at a NOL team or a BCHL team with 12 commits and they're ranked below a team with no commits, how real accurate is that poll? But I've got a video on that too. Jump in, enjoy some of the videos, leave comments either in the discussion page, leave comments on this live stream, leave comments on the YouTube. I need feedback on what's working and what's not. I don't want to keep going down paths if nobody finds that interesting. So let me know. Have a great night, and we'll see you next week. Take care.